Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. It is always such a pleasure to see you. Now, I hope you're all having a fantastic summer and that the solstice was a great day, not just of spiritual energy, but just of energy for you and all that you love. Now, before we begin, let us all send healing energy to our loyal friend and supporter, Paul, the Bongo Man. He's been a spirit-minded being his whole life, supporting all who are of the light, regardless of background, similarities, differences, or beliefs. He knows we are all one, all connected, all part of each other. He has surgery scheduled, and we wish him the fastest recovery. Misha Berach Avotenu V'Imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Bless those in need of healing with renewal, with spirit. And that goes out to any of you who need prayers, blessings, goodwill, love. And thank you, Harvey, for that fantastic Moses joke you sent. It was truly one of the best I have ever seen, and yes, I can drive a truck. Well, whether you want me to or not, that's another story. And friends, as an aside, having nothing to do with anything, I have to tell you, I saw one of the funniest shows I have ever seen, Fish in the Dark. We've all been there. We've all seen it, lived it. I laughed for 2 hours, and I think we all need to laugh a lot more in life. Friends, there is much to be learned in our weekly look at what the ancients wrote and believed. It applied to their lives on an ongoing basis, just as it still can and does in our lives today. And this is not just the case with the Torah or the Bible. It is all ancient systems which are still read, still practiced, still followed. Now, one of the things we are taught is having gratitude for what we have been given is the core meaning in our lives. In that sense, the natural leads to the ethical. For gratitude compels us to acknowledge what we have and to give back what we have received. The sacred stories of Torah can combine with the sacred teachings of the earth into a new book of life, which we read with the body, the mind, and the heart. The divine is revealed in the world through 3 dimensions, in world, year, and soul. Me'i Hashiloach, the living waters, was an early 19th century Torah commentary that focused on this concept of space, time, and soul. 3 separate dimensions. The world of space, the year of time, and the soul is our feeling for them. The physical space of nature, the times of the year. The spiritual movements of the days and seasons that take place within each of us. And I mention this because I had a great question from somebody about time, about solstices and equinoxes, about special solar dates observed in a lunar calendar. And that's a great question. Thank you very much for it. Well, believe it or not, they're clearly named in the Talmud. And for those of you interested, you can read about them in Berachot 59b, in Shabbat 53a, and in Eruvin 56a. And they're called the Tekufat Nisan, the spring equinox, Tekufat Tammuz, the summer solstice, Tekufat Tishrei, the autumn equinox, and Tekufat Tevet, the winter solstice. And friends, Tekufa is the word for season. So what the reference in the Talmud is to the spring season, the winter season, the summer season, the fall season. And for those of us, who grew up having 4 seasons, it sounds very familiar. Now, several ancient hints point to the possibility that these 4 turning points might once have been sacred days in ancient Judaism. Now, a number of medieval Jewish legends also seem to attribute special power to these days. Remember, first and foremost, your spiritual practice is based on your own intentions. Creating a Jewish practice of the seasons might include new kinds of celebrations for these days, including blessings for the changing of the seasons, and the Kavanah, the prayerful intentions for crossing from one time to another. Such creative inventions might actually be based on very old traditions. The Book of Jubilees, which is a pre-Talmudic work from several centuries before the Common Era, proposes an alternate solar calendar instead of the later accepted lunar one. And the text names the first days of Tishrei, Tevet, Nisan, and Tammuz as feasts of remembrance. Noah, according to Jubilee 7, established these 4 days as festival days in memory of events at the time of the flood. Now, because the calendar of the Book of Jubilees is solar, these days appear to represent solar equinoxes of autumn and spring, and solar solstices of winter and summer. And of course, because it's a solar calendar proposed by the authors, it never quite fit in with the Torah. And we don't know, because of its difference from mainstream Jewish calendar, just how widespread the author's ideas might have been and where they came from. Now, significantly later, the Babylonian Talmud makes the suggestion that there are 4 New Years. What are the 4 New Years? Well, there's considerable debate about what these New Years are or when. Although the rabbis propose separate New Years for trees, plants, animals, humans, and so forth. Now, one theory is that these 4 New Years once referred to the 4 solar transitions of the year, the equinoxes and the solstices. And that makes perfect sense to me. I get that. And it seems to fit with the opinion that the world was created in spring, not in autumn. And friends, there's a blessing over the sun on each equinox and solstice, only said when certain dates line up a certain way. And so it's not one that's often used today, and you actually almost never hear it. And it only can occur once every 28 years. But contemporary Jews who feel connected to the solar year might use these ancient and medieval legends and practices as the basis for new seasonal rituals. And friends, we have been asked, and we have agreed to do special presentations on several of these new moon seasonal transitions, because people do want to honor the shift in transition. Now, the ancient legends of the seasons told us that the spring equinox was about the triumph of life. The summer solstice, which we just had last week, is about loss and abundance. The fall equinox, the one that marks Rosh Hashanah, is the link between heaven and earth. And the winter solstice, of course, is all about the search for light. Well, I won't go into them all, but since we just had the summer solstice last week, here are its highlights according to ancient writings. Jubilees tells us, in the story of Noah's flood, that the summer solstice is the day that the mouths of the great abyss are closed, so that water ceases pouring onto the earth. Now, it also names the summer solstice as the day that the Lord exiled Adam and Eve from Eden. It's the day the animals lose their power of speech, which of course reminds me of the scene in Wicked when the animals lose their power of speech. Now, it's also the day the sun stood still, not for Michael Rennie and Klaatu, but so that Joshua's warriors could win the battle of Gibeon. And we are told in Genesis Rabbah that on the summer solstice, no creature has a shadow. I bet you thought it was simply the longest day of the year. Now, it was also the day that Moses strikes a rock, supposedly in anger, while seeking water for the people, and is told he will never enter the land of Israel as a result of his actions. And friends, we will read about that this week. We're going to talk about it very shortly. So if you were wondering why it's about loss and abundance, please note that it carries with it themes of closure, the mouth of the deep, the Garden of Eden, exile, Adam and Eve, Moses, loss, the animal's loss of speech. Yet also it contains the benevolence of nature and the divine, the appearance of the water from the rock, the saving of small animals, the standing still of the sun. We meditate on grief, yet also on the world's abundance. The summer solstice, it's a day of paradox, my friends. Maximum light, but also a turn towards darkness. Now, friends, let's turn to something else. Let's turn to this week. Let's now fast forward 40 years. We may not know when certain events take place, such as last week's rebellion, but we do know when this week's events take place. Miriam dies. Aaron dies. People complain for a change. And God lets loose a plague, which is cured by Moses making a bronze serpent for the people to be cured by. And the serpent had a name, Nehushtan, which was finally destroyed by King Hezekiah many, many hundreds of years later. But Wow, the thought of it, destroying an object created by Moses himself because the people would light incense to it. We are approaching the end of the line. The 40-year journey. The end of stories. Well, it's all right. Even when push comes to shove, well, it's all right if you got someone to love. Well, it's all right. Everything will work out fine. Well, it's all right. We're going to the end of the line. And it will work out fine, my friends, as this week we explore some additional statutes as we take a look at the Parsha Hukat. We've had bookends in this Parsha and in this book. This Parsha has bookends of death. Miriam's at the beginning in a one-line statement, and that of her brother Aaron at the end. And we have bookends of life cycles on a much larger scale. At the beginning of Numbers is the census of the new nation with all of the pomp that surrounds it. And the book ends with the death of that entire generation. Now, friends, this week's particular Parsha opens the door to a journey of Kabbalistic mystery through the ritual of the red heifer, a water purification process after contact with the dead and or to expiate our sins individually and communally. Well, we're not going to talk about the red heifer. Suffice it to say, this scene is also a continuation of the lessons about leadership. The wise leader prepares his successor. Eliezer is prepared to take on the role of high priest. Now, for a change, in this parsha we're presented in Numbers 21 with a grumbling, thirsty, wishing they had died with the others group. And we witness the crime of Moses. And that's what we're going to take a look at. Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron, your brother. And you shall speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will give its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and give a drink to the congregation and their cattle. Take the staff, not your staff, not Aaron's staff, but the new symbol of power, the staff. This is a second obtaining of water from a rock. Once was from a crag on Mount Oreb, Sinai, and once, this one, a rock in the wilderness. Now, in biblical Hebrew, the words were different. For us, it's the same, but in biblical Hebrew, the mountain crag was a sur, and the wilderness rock is a sila. So the people reading it would understand the difference, but in translation, we see it as the same thing. And adding to the confusion is the fact they both had the same name, Meribah. And Moses and Aaron assembled the community opposite the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, rebels, shall we bring water out of this rock for you?" There is that phrase again, listen, rebels. The words God used when instructing Moses about the staff of leadership last week. And notice that Moses is now taking miracle worker status. Shall we bring water? Does not defer to the power of God. And in our anthropomorphic world, our jealous, sometimes egotistical God does not like this. And Moses lifted his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and much water came out. And the congregation and their cattle drank. But he was to speak to it, not strike it. And many try and explain Moses' punishment as being because of this. He struck it instead of speaking, as he had done the prior time. Is this his crime? No. Whatever the reason you believe, though, my friends, the fact remains, for the first time in the Bible, a human has actually changed a miracle from God. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac performed no miracles. Jacob may manipulate the color of Laban's flock, and Joseph may interpret dreams, but only Moses and Aaron performed God's miracles. And now Moses changes a miracle. This shift will continue in the biblical books that follow the Torah, and is one of the central developments of the Bible. Joshua will call for the sun to stand still in the skies. By calling for a miracle on his own, without direction from God, he goes even further than Moses. It appears, my friends, that starting with Moses, with this incident, God, jealous as he may be, is now entrusting humans with ever more responsibility and control of their destiny. So by the end of the Tanakh, miracles cease. There are no visible miracles in the late books of Ezra, Nehemiah, or Esther. Humans must direct their destiny with their own natural human powers, not with endowments of miraculous powers from God. And look how well we have done. Through the course of the Tanakh, humans are forced to grow up and become more self-reliant. God says to him, "Inasmuch as you did not trust me to sanctify me before the eyes of the Israelites, even so, you shall not bring this assembly to the land that I have given to them." Friends, we need to look at what was written instead of what we think. God says, because you did not trust in me to make me holy before the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this community to the land I've given them, to make me holy. They were to praise the power of God. And so by word and act, Moses is appropriating to himself an act of God. And you don't do that in front of a jealous God. Until this episode, Moses has repeatedly told the people, "It's not from my own heart. You were congregating against the Lord." But now, his words and actions confirm the people's own perception. It is him. He's come a considerable way from his timid attempts to avoid the assignment at the burning bush. Friends, the sin of Moses is not striking the rock. It is like the sin of Adam and Eve, stepping over the line, taking a power from the divine realm. That shows the seriousness of the crime. And so his punishment is the same: exile. He will not be able to enter the promised land. The Torah is a fantastic book of subtlety, foreboding, lessons, morals. Step back, my friends, and you see an even greater book and picture surrounding the life of Moses. The two signs that God had given Moses at the beginning of the burning bush episode are that his staff becomes a snake and his hand becomes leprous like snow. That was the beginning of the Mosaic journey many of us are still on. These now are seen to have foreshadowed events in Numbers. The snake on a pole magically cures the people, and Miriam's becoming leprous like snow, her punishment for criticizing Moses, his wife, both coming shortly before Moses' end. Friends, Moses was and is unique in history. Nothing can deny Moses' singular place as Israel's greatest leader and prophet, but the bookends of his role show us a much more complex, more interesting, and more human Moses. The picture of Moses striking the rock and saying, "Shall we fetch you water?" made the hero more fallible, while the picture of Moses, always with a veil, made him more mysterious. We are now approaching the end of the journey, the end of the narration of the Torah, the end of Numbers. Deuteronomy is the farewell address and the summary of the laws. The stories are about to stop. Another week or so, and there's no more stories. Remember, there are a myriad of layers to what you read, to what you learn, and understanding not just the leaders, the prophets, the kings, the patriarchs. You'll be whisked up and brought back down. He'll take you up, he'll bring you down. He'll plant your feet back firmly on the ground. He flies so high, he swoops so low. He knows exactly which way he's going to go. As you continue your own journey, do not be afraid to look at things differently, my friends. Do not be afraid to honor those 4 special days. Do not be afraid to bring your own intention to your practice. Simply do not be afraid. The Torah is about not being afraid. As Gandhi said, power is of 2 kinds. One is obtained by fear and the other by love. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than the one derived from fear. The world is sacred. So is everything in it. My friends, express your gratitude. Friends, light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom, be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace. Pray for freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. We share this ride together. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. Till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you all. Love you. See you all next time. And I do love seeing you all again. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And remember, your wishes do come true. Bless you all. Shabbat shalom. Have a fantastic week. Take care. Bye.